Do you want more success, more growth, more results? Then it's time for the Boundless Success Accelerator from the Modern Observer Group. This isn't your average coaching program. It's where top performers come to dominate. Weekly group sessions, on-demand coaching, a community that's got your back, and a power-packed library of tools to supercharge your business and career. No more excuses, no more waiting. Get in, level up, and start building the life you've been dreaming about. Visit us at modernobserver.com/boundlesssuccess to join today. Let's get you to the next level.
Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. And Dr. Lopkin, another pivotal week. Exciting, it's interesting, and I think it's monumental. But before we get into the details, let's get the good doctor's overall debrief in terms of post-election debrief, and then why don't we dovetail that into your biggest losers?
Well, it has been
All yours.
It has been an amazing week just watching what goes on. If you take a look, I mean, Donald Trump has not even taken office yet, and the stock market soared, Bitcoin soared. Russia, Ukraine, and Hamas have all started calling for peace. And this is without him doing a thing. All he did was show up. He's already got key cabinet members named, which was a big mistake that he made in 2016. He didn't realize how many people he was going to have to name and actually relied on Washington insiders to fill those positions. That's gone.
Let me
now.
just interject one thing on that. Let me interject one thing on that, and you got just let it go. I think that was his Achilles heel in the end.
Oh, absolutely. But this time around, he knows exactly what to expect. So now he's bringing in outsiders. He's bringing in people he trusts, those that both in office and out of office. I think the biggest change, or what's going to be a sweeping change for the Trump administration, is going to be his new Department of Government, excuse me, Department of Government Efficiency, which is basically Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. And they're not even going to be officially, I don't know about Ramaswamy, but Elon Musk isn't actually going to be a government employee. He's basically...
No, they're both not.
Yeah, they're doing this on the side. And this is amazing because there was actually an article in Barron's that said the government can cut billions of dollars out of the budget in one fell swoop. And that is to require all government employees to return to the office. So
nice.
In that,
and by the way, to that point, there's vacant office buildings costing, as you say, billions.
Yes.
To maintain with no one there.
Exactly. I think they said the Social Security building is actually only at 5% capacity. So we're paying all of this money for buildings we're not using, for programs that aren't being done. So this is going to be a sweeping change. And this is not the first time this has been tried. Because if you remember, back during the Obama administration, we had the Simpson Bowl report, and it detailed all sorts of government waste, recommended different ways to get rid of it. And Obama looked at it and went, no, we're not going to do this.
Yes, and plus another, I would agree with that. Plus the other part of it, you had the foxes guarding the hen house because you give that report to the very people that are making it happen. What do you think? They're going to have self suicide? No.
Exactly. So by bringing in
It was like,
outside people to do this, right now it is expected that there is going to be blowback against what they want to do from the government unions. But quite frankly, the Supreme Court has already ruled, this is several years ago, that public unions cannot require people to join them. So you can literally get rid of these positions. If you need to hire, you can hire non union members and move forward.
also, there's another thing you talk about, like they talk about self deportation. Well, you can have self firing or resigning because another part of this is going to be moving these so called institutions to other parts of the country, which I think is brilliant, by the way.
Yeah, because quite frankly, Washington, D.C. real estate is overpriced and it's not worth it. So, yes, we can
Plus, you
move
get the
things.
echo chamber. Plus, you
Right.
get the echo. You need fresh thought. Yes,
So you can move
divergence
things
of
around
opinion.
there. As you just said, you mentioned self deportation. That's something else we've already started seeing since Trump took office. Mayor of New York, Eric Adams, announced they're not going to be giving these debit cards to immigrants anymore. And all of a sudden, you're seeing immigrants start to leave. You saw Mexico actually break up a caravan. You've seen people on their way here stop and say, well, if they're not going to give us free stuff, we might as well not go.
Okay, now I thought it was really interesting. Eric Adams in a press conference, he was asked a question by one of the liberal media, New York media, and basically saying, about resisting deportations and ICE and everything. And he goes, "Well, you just want me to work for half of New York's population. In other words, you're starting to see pushback, except from the mayor, who's an absolute moron from Chicago. He says they're not only coming after migrants, but blacks. Yeah, okay, 25% of blacks voted for Trump, you moron. But I also want to ask you about what do you think? I mean, Democrats really haven't learned their lesson. You have mayors of Boston. I'm sure she's, worked a day in her life, and others, the governor of Illinois, who's basically just a inheritor of money. I think it was a hotel chain. They're saying, oh, the over my and the New Jersey governor who barely won his spot in 2022, I believe it was. They're insisting they're going to. It's over their dead body. Your thoughts?
Yeah, they're going to have to learn their lessons because take a look at what happened in California. There are counties in California that were flipped red in this election. The mayor of San Francisco lost her election. The liberal DA, backed by George Soros in Los Angeles, lost his election. These folks are not safe. Just because they weren't up for reelection this year doesn't mean that they're going to be able to survive if they don't go along with what their voters want.
I actually think one of the biggest repercussions, ramifications, is the winning of the popular vote. The first time since 1988 a Republican did that. Um, I believe, what do you think, that yes, the Democratic Party is in upheaval, but I believe that prudent, and I want your thoughts on this, prudent Democrats in both the House and Senate and in gubernatorial positions are going to think twice before they go full rogue.
Oh, I think it's more than thinking twice. You're already seeing, especially in the Senate, people speaking out, going, no, we have to work together. John, I don't remember who it was, but somebody just described John Fetterman as the new Joe Manchin.
Oh no,
There,
Fetterman, his it's fascinating. He basically said that Rubio, the choice of Rubio for Secretary of State was fantastic. I'm not
Yes.
so sure. I think you might have mentioned it. If he flips, I mean, 2 years ago, I think you need to go to a hospital. But I don't know. Is it, and that brings up a bigger issue, Lopkin. Is there really a place in the new Democratic Party for centrists? I'm not so sure.
Well, that's
Because
what
here's what I really think. I think after '88 or after the Reagan Revolution, the Democratic Party had to tweak some things economically, blah blah blah, and it worked out very well. It's beyond tweaking. I'm not so sure they're not going to double down on insanity on the AOCs.
that is a possibility, but
That's what it's looking like now.
given what the electorate did, that is going to cost them the midterms.
Yes, it will.
The fact of the matter is the last time the Democrats were in this situation was 1980. It took them 12 years to recover. And they did it
True.
because Bill Clinton, while starting out to the left, realized he had to be a centrist. He had to move to the
100%.
center. And
Actually, his biggest savior was Newt Gingrich.
yes.
It's a fact. Yes.
So the Democrats right now have a choice. They can listen to the electorate, which, quite frankly, is the job of every politician, regardless of what party you're in. You work for the electorate, not for your party. So they can either listen to the electorate or they're going to be in the weeds for a long time. And right now they're fighting. The hypocrisy is amazing. I saw a speech by J-Pal where she actually said, yes, I wanted the filibuster removed. And when somebody asked her, well, now that the Republicans are in charge, do you still want it removed? She said, no, because the Republicans are in charge, I don't want it removed. But if we had won, I would still want it removed. So they're not even, the left is not even hiding their hypocrisy.
Well, they're also very hypocritical. They're actually, talk about, they're so hypersensitive to race. They're blaming black men and Hispanics. That would go over big if a Republican did that, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, they're blaming black men. They're blaming Hispanic men. Well, guess what? That's going to cost you votes in the midterm. You can't do that. You have to stop scapegoating. There is only one person that is to blame for the Democrats' loss in the presidential election, and that is Kamala Harris. She was a flawed candidate at best who wasted $1 billion, actually more than that, because she raised $1 billion and she's $20 million in debt.
But
And
whoa. It's not. Whoa. I agree. There's a couple things about that are worth mentioning, and I thought about this. Okay, before the show. Number one, drum roll, please. Uh, Trump spent around less than 700 million. Okay, but that's over the course of a year and a half. What makes this so much more just head shaking? It's 3 months and over $1 billion. Plus the way she spent it, there's irregularities here, but I don't really care about the irregularities because she lost. It's the total. Just you could shake your head paying, Oprah $1 million. These endorsements were not like let's just say ground root endorsements. They pay these people. Who ever heard of such a thing?
exactly,
I've never.
if you take a look at the FEC reports, and these are public reports, everybody can go to fec.gov and look at the reports for themselves. She paid for the podcasts that she went on. She paid for these endorsements of celebrities that came on stage with her. She paid $1 million to Oprah for that town hall interview. So there was not only no grassroots movement for her, even the diehard Democrats were being paid off in order to support her.
Yeah, and it's also the arrogance, and I guess it goes into my negative feelings about liberalism. It's always do as I say, not as I do. How lazy, how entitled is it that you can't get your ass to the what? It's your daddy podcast. I've never heard of it until she did the hotel room, and I can understand possibly $5,000 to redo it. $100,000. You could have your house essentially remodeled top to bottom. Who the hell? $100,000?
Yeah, and
And you
if
couldn't
you
just
look,
put a curtain. Wait, hold on. You couldn't just put a curtain. I mean, who the hell thought of that?
well, I
Go
mean,
ahead.
if you look at that set, now I've got a background in video and all of that. I could have had that set built for $500. This was not a complex set. So the fact that they spent this much meant no, it didn't go into building the set. It was compensating the podcaster for asking the softball questions. So she was buying the media, she was buying her endorsements, and even then never answered real questions.
May I
So
ask you a question, Mr. Media? This is not like 1960. Do you really even have to actually rebuild a set? I
no,
mean, you ever hear of like a green board or whatever the hell they call it?
yeah,
Really, genius?
they could have
$100,000.
put up a portable green screen.
There you go.
I happen to have one in my office. You can actually buy these on Amazon. I think they're $40 and just put the
Hmm.
virtual setup. So yeah, this was
Complete incompetency, and she's fit for the president. I mean, the how the stupidity. It's not. If it was a show, if it was a movie, the critics would they'd say this is ridiculous. I mean, that's a president. They'd call it. They would just call it bizarre. We'll just leave it at that.
it was. So I mean
She was a moron.
that is where the bulk of the blame belongs, is the flawed candidacy of Kamala Harris. Now, if you really want to go deeper into who's to blame, it was the Democratic policies. Even Bernie Sanders, who immediately after the election came out as the voice of reason of all people, saying, look, we abandoned the working class. You cannot be surprised that the working class abandoned the party.
Okay, wait a second. When we talk about the hotel room, that is a microcosm. That's the hypocrisy, entitlement on steroids. Talk about to being completely out of touch, not even knowing about a green board, about how about throwing. Sorry, who's your daddy? Does it have to be exact? Does anyone even know what the effing set looks like? I mean, hello, because you can't fly your ass. It was to San Francisco where she does the podcast anyway. Amazing, just head
Yeah,
stopping.
it was incredible arrogance on the part of the Harris campaign. It was the same arrogance that led her to tell Joe Rogan, no, you have to come to me. And her campaign demanded the right to edit the podcast before it aired. That's why
And they
Joe
couldn't
Rogan.
talk.
That's
And
why
they couldn't
Joe
talk
Rogan
about
told her no.
legalizing pot. And
Right.
they couldn't talk about legal. Yeah.
And that's why Rogan told her, forget it. You need me more than I need you, which is true.
It was 100% true, and I believe Carvel said it right. The Raging Cajun, that the moment of when it just jumped the shark, her campaign was on the View, and what would you change? And she looked like the genius she was, and said nothing. That was check, please, goodbye. It's over, dude.
Yeah, the more she talked, the more people saw her for who she is. And she expected this to be a coronation because that's how she got every other position she was in. So yes, she ran for office in California, but she never had to deal with a real election because she was handed these positions. And again, you could, as Nancy Pelosi said about AOC's district, you could run a coffee cup with a D on it and it would win.
Yeah,
She
but in
got
her district, she did win, but she sometimes like for DA, she barely won. There you
right.
go.
And she did not get a single primary vote in 2020. She did not get a single primary vote in 2024. And people resented that she was the candidate because she didn't earn it. That is the core of why so many people came out. Now, also, you're also seeing the major downfall of the liberal media, who was carrying her water the whole time.
Whoa,
In the
whoa, whoa! Before you get into that, let's switch for a second, and now let's get into the other category, other topic, biggest losers. Go for it, Doctor Lopkin. There's many.
Yeah, I don't know if you can pick a biggest because there are so
No, no,
many
biggest
losers
meaning,
in this.
yeah, when I say a list of the biggest, I don't mean
Yeah.
the biggest. Biggest losers.
I
Who
mean,
are they?
certainly MSNBC is one of the biggest losers. Harris herself is
Yeah.
one of the biggest losers. Nancy Pelosi is one of the biggest losers because now
Oprah,
she's Oprah, who lost an incredible amount of credibility in this, is one of the biggest losers. George
no doubt.
Clooney is one of the
Yes.
biggest losers.
You do it, by the way, about George, good old George. I think his movie, not that I give a shit, his movie career is dead and buried. And I think even bigger than that is the whole celebrity shtick. That train crashed
Yep.
and burned, dude.
Yes.
It's
So
over. No one gives a shit about some high school dropouts who want to extol their knowledge on us. Please.
yeah, Hollywood learned the lesson that the American people don't care what they think. And quite frankly, they actually saw the devastating effect that these endorsements can have on a career. Does anybody really think Robert De Niro is ever going to work again?
Oh no! Wait a second. You're correct, Doctor Lopkin, as always. No, he's already got before Trump even won. He was slated to do, of course, what he always does, the mob crap, which, by the way, got to his head. He actually thought he was a tough guy. He's like 5'3", please.
Yeah.
But anyway, he was slated to do a couple. Goodbye, check, please.
Yeah, he's already
That is
lost.
a fact.
Yes, he's already lost movies because it's not that he came out against Trump. There are loads of people that said, well, I'm not voting for Trump, that their careers are going to be
Fine.
fine. It's the fact that he went so far into Trump derangement syndrome that he came across as absolutely insane.
Can I elaborate on that?
Go
I think the
ahead.
jump the shark moment for him was at the courthouse. He just
Yes.
looked pathetic, old, and essentially retarded.
Yeah, when he was talking to people there as though he was the tough guy. It's like, are you kidding me? You're you're a tiny little man who's over the hill. You're not in good shape. Anybody could
Elevator
take
shoes,
right, anybody could take him in a fight, but he's trying to come off as one of the characters he's played.
delusional. Any other biggest losers? Legacy
I,
media is
well, legacy
you
media
could base
is a one of the
is
biggest
finished,
losers. Yeah.
the biggest. In fact, MSNBC had around I think almost 10 million viewers in the election time, talking like the 2 weeks in
Right.
that period. less than 500,000 now. CNN is already basically um, almost underwater. It's unsustainable. They've already announced major layoffs, and not just the camera person. You're talking about so-called celebrities. Anderson Cooper, he makes $20 million a year for less than 500,000 viewers. That's ridiculous.
It is. And you're seeing, again, both MSNBC and CNN lost 50% of their viewership
Yep.
as soon as Trump won, because people are tired of listening to their spin and their lies. And you are going to see, again, CNN has already announced layoffs. Comcast, I mentioned this briefly last week, is looking into selling it because they don't want to be involved with them anymore.
Yeah, I think
So,
Comcast is more. I think Comcast isn't Comcast MSNBC. I think they are.
yes,
Yeah,
Com-
Comcast owns NBC, and I
Comcast,
think the other one. What's her name? What's her name? Joey Reid. I think
Joy,
her time is Joy Reid, whatever. Yeah, is her time is about ended. She said her shtick is over.
yeah,
And then before you go before you go, because I just want to say one thing, because you're 100% correct. And I think one of the quintessential aspects of all this is that people, I think this was the last hurrah. People said, oh, she's going to win. Oh, this, oh, that, oh, this. And then for the last, how many times can you be disappointed by your girlfriend or boyfriend or wife, husband? Eventually you say, oh, okay, enough. I can't do this anymore. Am
and
I
that
not correct?
you are, and that's exactly what the viewers are doing. I think, I mean, again, CNN has already announced layoffs. I would not be surprised to see a lot of the on air talent at both of these networks go away. The fact of the matter is, Trump got people's attention by going on podcasts, by talking on social media, by talking in person at rallies. And that was another big difference between the two campaigns. If you look at the FEC filings, the Harris campaign was paying people to be at their rallies. Trump never had to do that. So
No,
you're
I think
seeing,
we both agree also that AOC is a moron. But one thing she did say in one of her posts, and I do agree with her for maybe the first time, is even if you have positions that people don't, if you're inauthentic, which I would believe Harris is the quintessential example of that, it's better to be authentic and wrong than a phony and trying to be right. Do you agree with that, Dr. Lopkin?
I do. I'm not sure it made much of a difference in this particular election, but I do agree with that in principle. I think if
Well, I think
Harris
Harris was inauthentic.
Harris was definitely inauthentic, but I think if Harris had come out and actually said what her policies would be, which we know from her past campaigns would be to the far left, I don't think it would have helped her any. I think the
I
same
have to
people
agree
would
with
have
that.
I think the same people would have said, well, no, we definitely don't want to double down on what's going on now, and would have gone to the polls and voted for Trump anyway.
Now, you talk about the demise of legacy media. This is really unbelievable. So I'm old enough to remember Meet the Press, Face the Nation. I forgot the last Face the Nation guy, an older guy. He was excellent. So they had the host of the new host of Face the Nation. He's been doing it for like 10 years on what's his name again for CBS, the
Colbert.
late night guy. Yeah, and he literally cried.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See,
he's objective. Yeah, okay, yep. Yep, okay.
and that we've talked about this for 15 years. That is one of the big problems with legacy media. When Walter Cronkite went on camera, you did not know what his political position was. The only time you got any inkling was when he spoke out against the Vietnam War. And he did that once. And it was so monumental that it made history.
Absolutely. And speaking of history, one of my other favorites, George Stephanopoulos, little Georgie, the Beltway king or queen, however you want to do that. He didn't have the ho hos to do his show after the Trump victory.
Yeah, and that's another big problem that the Democrats are going to have to deal with. You know, you've got apparently an entire demographic of people, and demographic is the wrong word because it crosses different demographic groups. But these are folks that cannot handle adversity. You had Harvard giving students time off so that they could grieve the loss of Harris. It is absolutely amazing. This was an election. Guess what? There's going to be another one in 4 years. There's going to be a congressional one again in 2 years. Your candidate didn't win. You've got another shot at it.
So you got to grow a pair. One thing I did hear, and I don't know if it's true, that applications for these Ivy League schools are way down. I have the tendency to believe it's true.
Yes, applications at Ivy League schools are way down, partially because the Jewish community has stopped applying to them because they don't feel safe there, partially because corporate America has looked at this and said, there's no value in an Ivy League education, so we're not going to hire from there. So yeah, they've got a lot of problems, and there is actually a possibility, I saw this, that Columbia University may be defunded by the federal government because
I heard that.
of various stances that they have taken that violate free speech.
Well, the question is why, and you talk about the Elon Musk, the Vic, let's just say, efficiency team. Why the hell are we funding Ivy League schools when they have $1 billion endowments? That's pathetically ridiculous. Sorry. That needs to be stopped immediately. And I'll also throw this one out. Why are we funding PBS? They're an arm of the NPR. What are you kidding me?
Both the Corporation for Public Broadcast, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which I believe is the parent of NPR and is the parent of PBS, there is a very strong possibility that it is about to be defunded in one of the first moves of the new administration.
Please.
The fact of the matter is, PBS served a purpose in 1960 when you had 3 networks, when you had a handful of independent stations around the country. Now, everybody has access to 500 channels on more, probably 1,000 channels on television. You go online, there's literally tens of thousands of podcasts for you to get news from. Websites.
And the best one is which one?
That would be Carnivore
Radio.
But you've also got millions of websites where you can get information from. And most of these are more unbiased than PBS is. So
the way you said about unbiased is the key. I would actually be fine with funding them, I guess, if they were actually the arbitrator of fair and balanced. They're an arm, not even of they're an arm of the Communist Party. They're like out of control. They used to be called the Palestinian Broadcasting Service. Now they're insane. They're insane.
Yeah, again, there was a point for them back then, but quite frankly, their strongest point was educational television. It was never news. News was just something else they did. It was all about education. Well, guess what? Sesame Street is on HBO now. You have the Discovery Channel. You've got National Geographic. National Geographic's got several channels. Discovery has 5 or 6 channels.
It's called obsolescence.
Yeah. They did not adapt to the changing landscape, and now they are obsolete. So why should we keep funding them? This is basically a case of the last buggy whip manufacturer. I'm sure
But it's
that
also
that last buggy whip manufacturer made a great product, but if nobody needs it, why keep it around?
the only problem with your analogy about the buggy whip manufacturer is that they don't make a good product, okay? And talk about being entitled and out of touch. If you know your ass is eventually going to be on the line, you may want to have a meeting and say, listen, maybe we can't be in the tank for communism in the Democratic Party, but maybe have one or two shows that are basically you don't need Prozac to watch. Hello, genius. But
And
that
the other
can't go soon enough.
no, and the other problem with that is that PBS makes a fortune off of licensing fees, off of because they've got multiple cable channels that cable providers pay to carry. They license the PBS name for merchandise. So they're making money without government funding. They don't need the government funding anymore.
No, they do not. And you know something? It's like having a kid who got out of college. Eventually, you got to say it's time to leave the nest, Freddie, Nancy, Jane, what have you. But there is also, you talk about the change of power. All three branches of government, or two branches of government, are now in the hands, and actually, you could make the case of three, are in the hands of the Republicans. The Senate, that's 53, I believe,
Yes.
and the House is at least 219.
Yeah, the House was
That,
just called in the last few hours that the Republicans kept control of the House, though by a very slim margin.
no doubt, but
So
hey, you take
they're
what you can get.
yeah, but they're going to have to learn to play well among themselves. Over the past 2 years, we've seen the Republicans tear themselves apart and fail to get things
Oh,
passed because they
oh,
can't.
they're
They
already doing it. They're
yeah,
already doing it. They already want to go after Johnson, which I think Trump has to put an immediate kibosh on, like hard and firm.
yeah.
I like
I mean,
Johnson.
yeah. Never underestimate the Republicans' ability to shoot themselves in the foot. You know.
Yeah, oh no, no question about it. And speaking of the transfer of power, I think you're going to have a big change. How do you like this? I think you're going to have a change with demographics all over the country, blacks, Hispanics, but also Jews who have been late to the game. You're going to have Huckabee as the ambassador to Israel, a pro Israel person. I think it's going to be an amazing, in spite of the in pogrom in Amsterdam. I think it's going to could be a marvelous era for Jews and Israel. Even though it might look black now, I think a strong American leader can put the kibosh on bullshit like that in these failed European countries, even including France, whose leader is very anti Semitic slash Israeli. He's on
Well,
his way out, by the way, anyway.
you're going to see. First of all, Hamas has already started talking about peace. Well, once Trump is actually in office, we know from what he did during his first term that he's going to reinforce the Iranian uh, not blockade. What's the word I'm looking?
I would say
Sanctions.
financial, yeah,
Sanctions.
sanctions,
Yes,
yes.
he's going to put these back in place. And quite frankly, he may make them more severe. So
Oh, he will.
already, Iran is not going to have the money to pour into the Houthis, to pour into Hamas, into Hezbollah. Well, without that money coming in, without that backing, you're going to see these groups fold pretty quickly. And the Israeli people have already determined this war will stop when Hamas is done for. So they're
Which
not,
is, that's what I'm saying, the golden age or
yeah,
a great age for Jews and Israelis. Because if Harris got in, no, even Biden was holding, had one, Israel had one hand behind its back. I think in Iran, in Tehran, they are shitting in their pants, okay? And I think also the Israeli strike basically handicapped their whole warning systems. I think you would not want to be the Iranian regime right here, right now.
No,
All the cards are in the West and in Israel's hands. That's just
and
the fact.
on a slight tangent to that, but dealing with security in general, it just came across that Donald Trump has just picked Tulsi Gabbard to be the director of national intelligence.
Nice. This
So, yeah,
is a all-star panel. Compared, well, hold on. Compared, no, it's an all-star panel standing alone. But when you look at the Biden Harris, that was a freak show. That was like embarrassing. It was nonsense. Mayor Petey, the transgender, I don't even know who these freaks were. They were nuts.
no, the capabilities and the knowledge of the combined cabinet that he has already announced is astonishing. This is the 1927 Yankees.
No doubt about it. And it's not DEI. Meaning, let me explain. Uh, it's who's the most qualified. You know, an African American, that's all fine. But that should not be the beginning of the search. It should be a also ran. It's fine. It's good. He is the most qualified, unlike Biden, and the results spoke for themselves. You talk about the pulling away of sanctions against Iran. How that? Who thought that was a good idea to begin with? What are you, nuts? Like, who the hell thought that was brilliant? You had Iran on their knees. Ooh, okay. It's like a fighter. You got the guy wobbling, and you say, okay, I think I'll have a bowl of soup now. Let him regain some strength. What a
Yeah,
bunch of morons.
it was absolutely ridiculous what this administration put
God.
forward. And the fact of the matter is, yes, it all came from the top. And by the way, speaking of coming from the top, have you seen the pictures of Joe Biden since Trump won? We haven't seen him smile this much in 4 years.
He's the happiest son of a bitch. And speaking of smiling, the lack thereof, during a Veterans Day celebration event, you Keith Richards and Mick Jagger in the height of their feud were better friends than Jill, Dr. Jill, and Harris. It was like it was 70 degrees in DC and it was minus 30 in that reviewing stand. That was unbelievable.
Well, Jill Biden apparently has this effect on people because she had this with Harris. Melania Trump refused to meet with her. You know, you're starting to see what people really think of Jill Biden. Nobody
Dr.
has
Jill,
any
please.
yeah.
Dr. Jill.
Nobody has any respect for her. We know she was keeping Joe in office without his capability because she loved the lifestyle. I honestly believe she should be prosecuted for elder abuse.
No question about it. And the really interesting, this is not my own original thought. Won't be the first time. Heard a commentator was excellent. It's like, he was always a clown. Yeah, okay, a senator, but he was always the joke. Joe. Plagiarism. This. I'm the smartest guy. Always never taken seriously, even as vice president. Her one moment to shine. You've been with this moron for 40 years, and he ascends himself by some way to the presidency. And guess what? You're back to Delaware. He's going to try to walk on the beach. By the way, did you see that video? Hello, there's people that have had a gallon of bourbon and walked better than him, but that's another subject. She's got to go back to her shitty life with her dummy husband and her coked out stepson. And hey, don't let the door hit you on the ass. I'd be pissed too, quite frankly,
Yeah. Oh,
Dr. Lopkin.
we've got more cabinet members coming up from the Trump administration. Marco Rubio has officially been named as the nominee for Secretary of State.
Great choice. Great choice.
I'm not so sure about this one, but Matt Gaetz has just been named for Attorney General.
Oh, no, that's ridiculous. That is BS.
I think
That is very, 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 very disappointing.
I honestly
Very,
think that
very.
I think that is a completely political move so that he can pull the conservatives into line. It's very disappointing that he did this. I don't think Getz was the best pick for that.
Best pick.
So let's
Awful.
hey let's
awful, awful, awful.
let's
That's
just
very
say
discouraging.
let's just say point blank that we have just found the weak spot in the cabinet.
Where'd he go to law school? Carl University. He's not exactly an intellectual juggernaut.
No,
He's got some problems himself with some underage shit.
no, this was a
stellar. That was really bad.
This
Oopsie.
this was an epic fail on the part of Trump, and we'll see where it goes. But yeah, so everything we've been saying about his stellar record going into with these cabinet picks. All right, he fumbled this one.
Oh well, Dr. Lopkin, why'd you have to ruin a great podcast? Well, we'll close on this. What do you think of the FEMA scandal? I found it outrageous.
Yeah, this was horrifying. This was the woman's last name is
Horrifying.
Washington. I don't know what her first name is. Told her people
DEI.
not to go to houses that had Trump signs. She is claiming that she did it to protect the FEMA workers because Trump voters were antagonistic to FEMA. No, these are folks that were struggling for their livelihood. They needed FEMA's help. They were not about to be a danger or an antagonistic, and they refused to send FEMA workers to help Trump supporters. This is the ultimate in the politicalization of the government agencies, and it is another reason why Vivek and Elon need to step in and streamline the government.
And let me just, yes, I would agree with that. One thing about the Matt Gates nomination nomination. Well, you don't have to be a genius. It's obvious that he's going for blood. This is not an erudite, the levers of power kind of guy. No, this is an attack dog. He's going after blood.
Yeah, I would say that's probably true. That
100%.
I honestly, I mean, again, I firmly believe this was a completely political move in an attempt to assuage the far right, which, quite frankly, I'm disappointed in. He should have just told them to sit down and shut up.
Yes, he had that ability. Yes.
But, we'll see. Again, we'll see what comes out of it. But yes, Getz is certainly more of an attack dog than a scholar.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Lopkin, great show, great insights. And I have to say, I'm just going to editorialize my own comment. I am enjoying this, both House and Senate. I think the alternative could have been deadly, literally and figuratively. How do you like that?
Yeah, I have been told by a number of people, and I happen to agree with this point of view, that they feel for the first time in years that an existential threat has been removed, that they actually
100%.
feel optimistic now about where America can go now that things have been put more in perspective, that meritocracy is being restored and people aren't going to be canceled anymore for speaking their mind. And in fact, There was a Democratic congressman from New York who actually stated that he is against having trans men compete in women's
Yes,
sports.
and
And the
he got lambasted, by the
right,
way.
and the Democrats have told him not to say this, and he has
He's
felt
going to switch.
threatened. Right, he has felt threatened by the Democratic Party because you cannot say this. They will cancel you. They will stop supporting you. Well, guess what? This is a victim. We talked about who the biggest loser is. The biggest winner in all of this is
Is
the first.
America.
Is America, yes, but more specifically, is the First Amendment. It is freedom of speech has returned to America.
Let me ask you one last question, Dr. Lopkin, because you're kind of on a roll here. What do you think of this concept? If Trump, all things look, besides the Matt Gates thing, all things look pretty good, the stars are aligning. If this thing starts getting, some real victories, if you will, I believe there's going to be Democratic defections. There's no end game in being a Democrat. If you're a young, ambitious guy, you don't have time to be screwing around. I'm not saying it's going to be, by the millions, but there's going to be 3 or 4 defections. Democratic leadership. I really do believe that.
I think it depends on which way the party itself goes. There will either be defections to the Republican Party or there will be a revolution within the Democratic Party to bring the party back to the center. Either
100%.
one of those is going to happen because the current status quo cannot survive.
It is unsustainable. You are correct once again, Dr. Lopkin. And for our listeners, they can be a part of this show. They can suggest, they can comment, tell them how that happens.
Yes, let's hear what you have to say. You can go to xvadio.com/connect. Let us know what you're thinking. You can also message us at the Carnivore Radio Facebook page. And you can now comment on specific episodes of the podcast in the new Xvadio YouTube channel and the Xvadio Rumble channel. So we've got all these ways you can be part of the show and let us know what you're thinking. And of course, you can catch every episode of Carnivore Bites at xvadio.com, the Carnivore Radio website, the Apple Podcasts app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin. See you next week.
We'll see you then.